What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. And the 2021 through 2022 NFL season is officially over, with the Super Bowl ending being played yesterday. Obviously, you all probably already know the Los Angeles Rams took home the Lombardi Trophy, which means now my final record picking games in the postseason this year was 9-4. So yeah, I just wanted to make a review video now of the entire 2021 NFL season, and meaning I'm just gonna go through each team, say if their season was a success or not, and then at the end go over just the overall top storylines of this season. Yeah, so let's begin. So we're gonna go by division, and I'll go from division winner to the bottom of the division. So the first division, the AFC East. I'm doing the AFC conference first, but the AFC East, coming in first was the Bills. They had an 11-6 record, lost in the divisional round to the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think this is a successful season for them. I mean, it was a good year, and they won the division for a second straight year. But I think this was a team that had Super Bowl aspirations coming in this year, and to not even make it back to where they got last year and not have as good of a record, I think it's a letdown for them. For the Patriots, I think it's actually a pretty successful season. I think they got a little overhyped in the middle of the year, and it built a whole lot of pressure. Shouldn't have been there in the first place. But you got to remember, this is a team that went 7-9 last year. Now they were with a rookie quarterback with very little supporting cast around him, and they still managed to go 10-7, make it to the playoffs. So the Patriots, I say their season was a success. The Dolphins. Their season, I don't believe, was a success. This was a team that was definitely considered a playoff contender for this year, and I think a lot of people even said that they were a sneaky dark horse Super Bowl candidate, and they missed the playoffs. Yeah, they went from a 1-7 start to a 9-8 record, but at the end of the day, they did not make the playoffs. The Jets, they finished 4-13. This was they had a rookie quarterback, and they had a rookie head coach. I think the future may be a little bit better than it seems for the Jets. I think Robert Saleh is a good coach. I'm not sold on Zach Wilson, but overall, I can't say a 4-13 season is a success. So, no, the Jets did not have a successful season. Moving on to the AFC North, the Bengals won their division, went 10-7. Obviously, they lost the Super Bowl last night. Obviously, once you're there, you want to win it, regardless of what the expectations were coming into the season. But this was a team that a lot of people, including myself, thought would finish last in their own division, and they won their division. Not only that, they won 3 playoff games to get into the Super Bowl, and they came up short of in the Super Bowl. But I think this was a successful season for them. They established that Zach Taylor is their head coach moving forward. They established Joe Burrow as their franchise quarterback. I don't think it's a bad season for the Bengals. Then there's the Steelers who came in second in that division with a 9-7-1 record. A lot of people thought they were going to come, completely unravel this year. People definitely did not think that they would finish ahead of the Browns and the Ravens, and if someone told you that, they would have thought that meant they were first in the division. I don't think it's a successful season for the Steelers, because this is a very, very, successful and historically successful organization, and a 9-7-1 record and losing in the divisional round, the wild card round, is not usually what they expect from themselves. But I think, taking into account who they had playing at quarterback, the defense just coming kind of falling apart towards the end of the year, it's not that bad. The Browns, maybe one of the most disappointing teams this season. This was a team that I thought would be that second team right there with the Kansas City Chiefs competing for the AFC conference title. This is a team that, last year they had a 12-4 record, I believe, or was it 11-5? Regardless, I thought this team would be a true Super Bowl contender this year, and they didn't make the playoffs with an 8-9 record. The Baltimore Ravens went 8-9. They had a lot of injuries, but still, very disappointing season for them. Then the Tennessee Titans, who went 12-5, one of the worst number 1 seeds of all time. I think this season, their end goal was to win a Super Bowl. They've already conquered their division, and they lost in the first round. I don't think this is a season that is going to be looked back on for them as a total success. The Colts 9-8, taking into consideration the start that they had this year after an 0-4 start, it's not the or 0-4 and 1-5, I think. I mean, it's not the worst possible outcome, 9-8, but they were a team that I think a lot of people thought would make it into the playoffs at one point when they were 9-6, and then they lost their last two games, which sealed their playoff hopes. The Texans 4-13. I think this was expected. A lot of people thought that this may have been the worst team in football, and at least they were able to scrap together 4 wins. So, the Jaguars 3-14. This was a disappointing season. I don't think anyone thought, including myself, that this is a team that would compete for a playoff spot this year. But I think the expectation was that they would at least be a little bit more respectable with their new head coach and their rookie quarterback. And the season resulted in their new head coach being fired halfway through the season and their rookie quarterback having the worst statistical season of any quarterback this year. Then you got my Kansas City Chiefs on the AFC West. Anything short of a Super Bowl is disappointment for this team because of the success of the last couple of years. But I look at this season as, they were 3-4 at one point, and a lot of analysts were saying that this team may not even make the playoffs. And for them to make the playoffs, and not only make the playoffs, win 2 playoff games, and host the AFC Championship game in their own stadium, and basically have a 18-point lead and blow it, it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's very impressive that they were able to get out of the hole they were in and put themselves in a position to be able to go to the Super Bowl. They came up short, so, if you look at it from the beginning of this year's standpoint, yes, it's a disappointment because we wanted them to win the Super Bowl. But if you look at it from a mid-season standpoint, it's actually pretty impressive what they did. The Raiders, they went 10-7. I think it's somewhat a successful season for them because I thought they would finish last in this division, and I definitely did not think they would make it into the playoffs. And the fact that they had the head coaching change early in the year, and then to add to that, a couple of their top players having to be released because of off-field issues. I mean, this team had distractions galore all season long and still managed to make it in the playoffs. And remember, they were 6-7 and won their last 4 games to get into the playoffs, and it was not easy opponents that they beat to do so. I believe they beat the Browns, they beat the Broncos, they beat the Colts, and they beat the Chargers. So it was an impressive run there at the end for them, but they lost in the wild card anyway. Then the Chargers at 9-8. This was not a successful season. I think Charger fans were hoping that this would be a playoff team this year with all the talent they have, and to go 9-8, that's not a successful season for them. The Broncos, same thing. This team has a lot of talent. Really, all they're missing is a quarterback, but still, I think they thought they could get by with Teddy Bridgewater and maybe sneak into the playoffs, but with a 7-10 record, no. Moving on to the NFC. Starting with the NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys. They had a 12-5 record. I think it depends on how you look at it, but overall, I don't think this was it was a successful season to the point they took back their division and they had a good record, 12-5, a good regular season. But this is a team that, the expectation is very high, and anything short of a Super Bowl usually is not looked upon as good because of their historic history, and with all the talent they have on that team, to drop out in the first round of the playoffs is disappointing for them. The Eagles, 9-8. I think this was a very surprising team this year. I thought this would be a 2 or 3 win team. I did not think Nick Sirianni would be a good head coach for them, and I did not think that they had anything on defense or offense to really do anything meaningful. But they actually managed to have a winning record at 9-8 and make it into the playoffs, and they have a bright future. They got 3 first-round picks this year. I think this is a team that 9-8 isn't that good of a record, and at the end of the day, they lost in the first round of the playoffs. But I think taking into account before the season, it was a successful season. Then the Washington Commanders, that were known as the Washington football team throughout their season this year, they went 7-10. I think this was a disappointing year for them. I think a lot of people and including people within the Washington organization thought they would take a leap this year and possibly contend for a wild card spot and maybe even their own division, like how they won it last year. But no, they're 7-10. They finished 7-10. The Giants, another team with a very disappointing year. I think this team thought that they could make it into the playoffs this year, possibly because of all the great pieces they put around Daniel Jones, and it was a prove-it year for Daniel Jones because they put a bunch of new playmakers and good big names around him, and he was not able to improve. So I do not think this was a good. This was nowhere near a successful season for the Giants. The Packers, I don't think it was a successful season because this is a team that has gone 13-3 the last 2 years. So doing another 13-win season again isn't all that exciting, and then to lose in the first round at home in Green Bay to a wild card team is kind of hilarious in my opinion. So no, it was not a successful season for them. The Vikings 8-9, not a successful season with all the talent they have there. The Bears 6-11, not really a successful season, but it was expected with that 6-11 record. I mean, rookie quarterback Matt Nagy's incompetent. The Lions, I think this team showed a lot of heart this year, so there's that. But overall, no 13-1 season is anywhere near successful. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they went 13-4. They actually won their division first time in a while, and they did win a playoff game. So I think it is somewhat a successful season, but I think when you have Tom Brady, anything less than a Super Bowl may feel sour at the end of the day. The Saints 9-8 missed the playoffs for the first time in a few years. It was expected, but at one point this team was 5-2, and then injuries just really hammered this team. But overall, it wasn't how they wanted their season to go. Obviously, the Falcons 7-10, another mediocre year. Obviously, not something to be excited about there moving forward, unless Arthur Smith can really turn it around. But I think they need to move on from Matt Ryan. And it's not because of Matt Ryan, but I think that relationship has just ran its course. The Panthers 5-12 after a promising start to the year. They completely collapsed as expected. I was really shocked when this team was doing as well as they were because I predicted them to be a really bad team this year, and then overall they did a little bit better than I thought even, but still they completely collapsed. They'll be looking for a new quarterback next year. Then the final division, the NFC West, the Rams, obviously a successful season. Your first year with a new quarterback, you go 12-5, win your division, and win the Super Bowl. I was wrong about Matthew Stafford. I will admit it. I mean, I thought he was a better quarterback than Jared Goff, but I didn't think he would be able to change any of the issues and turmoil that the Rams were going through. I didn't think even though he was better than Goff, I did not think he would be the difference in them finally winning a Super Bowl in the Sean McVay era. But I was wrong. He was the difference. So, congratulations to Matt Stafford. He's had a pretty interesting career, and he deserved this one. Then the Cardinals, after a 7-0 start, finished 11-6. This was a team that had a lot of hype coming into this year, and they lived up to the hype after a 7-0 to then 10-2 record, but then finished 11-6 and lost in the first round of the playoffs and did not even win their division. And there's been rumors about Kyler Murray wanting out of Arizona after what he did on social media, but if you ask me, it's just him trying to get some leverage on the organization to get whatever he's seeking on the team. But it's hard to say if this was an accomplishing season for the Cardinals because this is a team that hadn't been in the playoffs in the last few years, and they did make it and went 11-6. But if you take into account the amount of hype and the amount of people, big names they brought in during the offseason, and then the start they had to then lose in the first round of the playoffs, that doesn't feel that good for them. The 49ers at third, this team's another one that's kind of hard to say. They went 10-7, which is a good record. I coming into the year, my Super Bowl prediction was Chiefs and 49ers, and obviously I came very, very close. But I think the Niners were a 3-5 football team with a quarterback controversy brewing, and the fact that they were able to then finish the season 7-2 with all that drama, and then make it all the way to the conference championship game and have a 10-point lead at one point in the fourth quarter. I think it was a successful year. I think they proved that they were not a one-trick pony in 2019, and I think it was a successful year for them. I really do. I think obviously once they were in the conference game and had the game, it felt like it wasn't a success because they wanted Lombardi. Everyone does, but I think it was a successful season for them. Seattle, obviously a meltdown of a season, as I predicted coming into the year. I really thought this team would have a collapse entering this season because of the offensive line issues, the lack of defense, the lack of playmakers for Russell Wilson. Really, all he has is DK Metcalf, the lack of running game, and I was right. They went 7-10. They were able to string a lot of wins together towards the end of the year, but overall, it was definitely not what the Seahawks have been used to in the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll era. But yeah, that's pretty much it for all the teams. But from things I just want to talk about as the season as a whole is what made this season really fun was just the amount of upsets and the amount of twists and turns throughout the year. I mean, think about all these upsets that happened, and the fact that there was a team that made it to the Super Bowl that, honestly shouldn't have really been there. That's the one annoying part in my opinion. Like, the Bengals shouldn't have really been there. It should have been the Chiefs. There's at least 3 or 4 teams in the AFC that I can name that are a better overall team than the Bengals and probably would beat the Bengals, you know, 7 out of 10 times. But that is how it goes. But overall, it was a very impressive year, and I think this could have been the last time we see Tom Brady play. So yeah. And also a quick note on the MVP. I completely disagree with who they gave the MVP to. I think it should have been Cooper Kupp, a guy who literally came up less than 100 yards short of 2,000 yards receiving, a guy who came a few catches short of the single catches and receptions in a season record, and had almost 20 touchdowns, I believe. Come on. Is this a quarterback's only award? It's just ridiculous at this point. But whatever. But overall, yes, it's been fun making my predictions and power rankings throughout the year this year. And don't worry, there's going to be plenty of more NFL content throughout the off season. Tomorrow, I'm going to be dropping my ranking every NFL franchise's history, 1 through 32. So stay tuned for that. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time.